The lead truck had gone sideways first. Not off the road, just sideways, enough to block it completely. The rear wheels had found the ice beneath the packed snow somewhere around the third hairpin curve, and the truck had rotated slowly, almost gently, until its side faced the valley below and its front bumper rested against the cut stone wall on the uphill side. The driver had climbed out carefully, tested the surface with his boot, and immediately sat back down in the cab. The road was black ice under perhaps 10 centimeters of snow. The truck was not going anywhere under its own power. Neither were the 3 trucks behind it. The convoy carried heating oil 4 tanker trucks bound for Kirchdorf, a village of 300 people in the valley on the other side of the Bergkamp Pass. The oil was the winter's supply. The temperature at 6 in the evening was minus 11 degrees Celsius and falling. The village had enough remaining fuel for approximately 1 more day of heating. The pass road had been passable that morning. It was not passable now. The road service crew had arrived at 4:30. Their crew chief was a man named Franz Obermayer, 38 years old, broad-shouldered, experienced, in command of the district's largest snowplow since 1959. He had driven mountain roads in every winter condition Bavaria could produce. He had cleared this specific pass 17 times in the last 4 years. He arrived with complete confidence and departed the same way, backward, carefully, with the machine's rear wheels finding the same ice that had stopped the convoy, and the plow blade raised, because lowering it would have made things worse. He had made 2 attempts. Both had ended with the heavy plow beginning to slide toward the valley edge. His machine weighed 4 tons. On ice under pressure, 4 tons became something that did not grip. It simply moved in whatever direction physics chose for it. After the second attempt, he had radioed the district office and reported the pass closed. He told the lead driver that recovery equipment would arrive in the morning. The lead driver had looked at him for a moment. "The village," he said. "I know," Obermayer said, "morning." He stood at the edge of the road looking down the valley. Below, through the darkening air and the beginning of new snowfall, a farmhouse light was visible. He had not noticed the tractor yet. If this is your first story here, subscribe and hit the bell. We post a new story every single day, and this one is only just beginning. Let me tell you about the pass road and about the village it served, because both matter to what happens next. The Bergkamp Pass Road was 6 kilometers of single-lane mountain route built in the late 19th century and resurfaced 3 times since. The road gained 400 meters of altitude in those 6 kilometers, an average gradient of nearly 7%, with the hairpin curves considerably steeper. In winter, the combination of the road's smooth surface and the way the mountain channeled cold air along the upper section created a pattern of ice formation that was entirely predictable to anyone who had driven the road regularly over many years, and entirely invisible to a road crew chief who had only cleared it with a plow from above. The village of Kirchdorf on the far side had been supplied over this road since 1921. The route was its only motor vehicle connection to the valley below in winter. Not everyone who lived in this valley knew the Bergkamp Pass the way Heinrich Mayer knew it. Heinrich Mayer was 67 years old. He had been born in the farmhouse at the bottom of the valley and had been going up and over the Bergkamp since he was old enough to drive. He had driven it with horses in the 1920s, with his first tractor in the 1930s, and with the Lanz Bulldog since 1952. He had driven it in November and February, and in the late October storms that arrived before anyone was ready. He had driven it in conditions that would have made the district road service chief radio for help. He had been watching the convoy from his kitchen window since it stopped. He had seen the plow truck arrive and make its 2 attempts. He had watched it reverse back down. He pulled on his coat. His wife, Gerda, had looked at him from the stove. "The oil trucks," he said. "I know," she said. "Take the extra sacking for the seat." The Lanz Bulldog stood in the barn where it always stood. A 1952 D2816 dark blue body, red wheels, 28 horsepower, single cylinder, the exhaust pipe rising above the engine like a chimney. It was very cold in the barn, cold enough that Heinrich's breath was visible, and the iron of the machine was the temperature of a stone wall in January. He pulled the tarpaulin off and stood looking at it with the practiced eye of a man assessing a tool before trusting it with something that mattered. The machine was ready. It was always ready. The winch cable was coiled on its drum at the rear. The chain was hung properly. The tires had the right pressure for winter work. He took down the blowtorch from its shelf. Franz Obermayer saw the tractor's headlight coming up the valley road from the direction of the farmhouse, and initially thought it was a motorcycle. Then the single-cylinder note reached him through the cold mountain air. Pom, 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 1 beat per second, not the sound of any modern machine, and he turned and watched it come. And when it was close enough in his lantern light for him to see what it was, he stood very still. A Lanz Bulldog, an old one, moving at a walking pace up the snow-covered road as though the conditions required no particular acknowledgement. Heinrich brought the Lanz to a stop below the first truck. He climbed down from the open seat, no cab, no windshield, wearing his heavy coat and a wool cap pulled low, the cold simply a condition rather than a crisis, and walked to where Obermayer was standing. He looked at the convoy. He looked at the road surface. He looked at the cut stone wall on the uphill side and the valley edge on the downhill side and the specific angle at which the lead truck had settled. He had not spoken yet. "Mayer," Obermayer said. "I know this road," Heinrich said. "So do I," Obermayer said. "I've been clearing it since." "You clear it from above," Heinrich said. "I drive it from below." He looked back at the convoy. "The ice is on the upper section of each curve. The rock underneath is close to the surface on the left side. If you pull from the left on a diagonal, the tires find stone within 20 centimeters. If you pull from the right, you are on ice all the way." Obermayer looked at the Lanz, then at the valley below the road edge. "That machine pulls perhaps 2 tons at most," he said carefully. "Those tankers weigh 12 each." "I do not need to pull them far," Heinrich said. "I need to move each one far enough to find the stone. Once the tires find the stone, the driver takes it himself." The younger of the convoy drivers, a man from Munich, on this route for the first time, said quietly to the man beside him, "A 30-year-old tractor in the dark at -13. On that." He gestured at the ice. Obermayer looked at him, then at Heinrich, then at the pass above them where the village was waiting. "All right," Obermayer said. "Now subscribe if you haven't yet. Because what this old man and this old machine do on the Bergkamp Pass tonight is the reason this story has been told in this valley for 60 years. Let me tell you what Heinrich Mayer understood about ice and iron that Franz Obermayer's 4-ton plow did not. A heavy vehicle on ice does not grip poorly because it lacks power. It grips poorly because weight concentrated on a small area creates pressure that melts the top layer of ice, producing a film of water between the tire and the surface, and water on ice eliminates friction entirely. More power applied to a wheeled vehicle on ice does not produce more grip. It produces more wheel spin, more heat, more melt, less grip. The 4-ton plow had demonstrated this precisely. Each attempt had ended with the wheels spinning faster and the vehicle moving in directions unrelated to the driver's intentions. The Lanz Bulldog D2 816 weighed 2,200 kilograms. Its wide, low-pressure agricultural tires had a footprint on any surface that was disproportionately broad relative to the machine's weight. The ground pressure beneath the Lanz's tires on snow and ice was far lower than beneath any modern vehicle on the pass that night. Lower pressure meant less melt. Less melt meant more friction. More friction meant grip. But tire width was only part of it. The single-cylinder engine operated at between 600 and 900 revolutions per minute. At those RPM, running in its lowest gear with the flywheel managing the torque, the machine could move at less than 2 kilometers per hour, slower than a walking man, without the engine hunting or surging or losing its rhythm. At that speed, the tires were not spinning. They were rolling, pressing, finding the surface. The flywheel stored inertia, delivered force smoothly between firing strokes, not in surges that broke traction, but in a steady, continuous application that allowed each tire to read the surface beneath it. Heinrich also knew, and this was the knowledge that could not come from a route report or 17 plowing runs from above, that the Bergkamp Pass road had been built on a foundation of limestone karst that came within a few centimeters of the surface on the left side of each curve. The road surface over that limestone, even under ice and snow, had a roughness that rubber could find. He had found it hundreds of times in 50 years of driving this road. He knew exactly where it was on each of the 3 hairpin curves. He knew that if the lead tanker's front left tire could be moved 30 centimeters to the left and 10 centimeters forward from where it currently sat, the limestone would be directly beneath it. 30 centimeters. That was what the winch needed to accomplish. Not move 12 tons of heating oil over a mountain pass. Move the front end of one truck 30 centimeters in the right direction. Heinrich had been heating the glue cup for 8 minutes. In -13, the cast iron hot bulb chamber took longer to absorb heat than in mild autumn air. The cold iron drew warmth away from the surface even as the blowtorch applied it, and the waiting was longer than usual, the color slower to arrive. He crouched at the front lower section of the Lanz, holding the blowtorch from below, the blue-orange flame directed upward into the dome-shaped iron chamber near the base of the engine, just above the snow. His knees were in the snow. His breath rose in heavy clouds. Around him, the 4 tanker drivers and Franz Obermayer stood watching, their own breath rising, saying nothing. The snow had stopped. The sky had cleared in the way mountain skis clear on the coldest nights. Completely, suddenly, the clouds dissolving to leave a black above the peaks that was not darkness but depth, the winter stars burning over the Bergkamp with the specific brightness of very cold, very clear air. The temperature was still falling. 8 minutes, the iron reached its color. It did this more slowly in the cold, and the color, when it came, was slightly different from the summer color, cooler, less vivid. But Heinrich had seen it 10,000 times. He recognized it. He set the blowtorch aside in the snow and took the starting crank. His gloved hands turned it once. The flywheel moved. He turned it again, his full weight behind the rotation, feeling the compression build. On the 4th turn, the engine fired. Pum! The sound was different in the cold mountain air, heavier, each firing stroke followed by its half-second of silence with unusual clarity in the frozen night. The exhaust, meeting the -13 air, produced a brief cloud of condensation above the pipe. The Lanz shook once with the first stroke, and then settled. Pum! 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 1 beat per second. In -13, on a mountain pass in the dark, with a blocked convoy and a waiting village on the other side, and 5 men watching who did not yet entirely believe what they were watching. Heinrich pulled the wool cap lower, climbed onto the open seat, and began. He came in from the left side of the road, as close to the stone wall as the machine's width allowed. This was the direction of the limestone. He attached the winch cable to the tanker's front left towing point, not the center, not the right, but specifically the left, to pull the nose leftward and forward simultaneously. He checked the angle by feel and by memory, the same geometry he had used twice before on this curve in different years, with different vehicles, always with the same result. He walked back to the Lanz. He engaged the winch drum. Pum pum pum. The cable tightened. The night was so quiet that the individual links could be heard taking tension. The Lanz's wide tires pressed into the snow without spinning, the engine at perhaps 700 RPM, the flywheel turning, the machine holding its position on the limestone foundation while the cable drew steadily taut. Franz Obermayer was watching the front left tire of the lead tanker. For 3 seconds nothing moved. The engine beat, the cable held, the night held its temperature and its silence. Then the tanker's front end moved. Perhaps 10 centimeters in the first movement, a slow rotation of the truck's body around its rear wheels, the nose swinging left. Heinrich held the throttle. The cable continued to wind. The nose moved another 10 centimeters, then 15. The front left tire, moving across the ice on the pull of the cable, found the limestone beneath. The friction changed instantly and completely. The way friction always changes when a rubber tire finds solid stone under ice. And the tanker driver, who had been holding the wheel and feeling everything through the seat, felt it too. He engaged the engine. The tanker moved under its own power. In low gear, slowly, the driver reading the surface with the sensitivity of a man who understood exactly what had just changed. The tanker found its way around the hairpin curve and onto the straight section above it, where the surface was better, and kept going. The second tanker took 9 minutes. The third, 6. The fourth, 4. Heinrich had the angle precise by now, had remembered something about the fourth curve's limestone that made the geometry slightly different and adjusted for it before attaching the cable, and the fourth tanker moved in a single pass. At 9:47 in the evening, the last tanker cleared the upper section of the pass and began its descent to Kirchdorf. Heinrich coiled the winch cable onto its drum in the dark, his hands moving from long practice. Obermayer stood near the stone wall, not helping, not speaking. The stars were very bright over the Bergkamp. The temperature was -15. Stay with us. Subscribe now, hit the bell. New story every single day. Mayer, Obermayer said. Heinrich had finished with the cable and was checking the winch drum's brake. You knew the limestone was there, Obermayer said, on the left side of each curve. Yes. How long have you known that? Heinrich thought for a moment. Since 1931, he said. My father showed me. He had driven mules on this road since 1908, he said. Always the left side on the curves, the rock is there. He paused. He was right. Obermayer was quiet. He looked at the road, at the ice still visible where the tankers had crossed it, at the tire marks the Lanz had left, at the small areas of disturbed snow where each pull had started. I almost didn't listen to you, he said. I know, Heinrich said. The village, Obermayer said. They would have been without heat by morning. I know that too, Heinrich said. He mounted the Lanz. Go home, Obermayer. The road will be better by morning. He started the descent. Pum pum pum. The single-cylinder beat carried in the cold mountain air long after the taillights had disappeared around the first curve below. Obermayer stood on the pass with his plow truck, and the empty road, and the winter stars, and the specific silence of a problem that has been solved by someone else while you were considering the limits of your equipment. The heating oil reached Kirchdorf at 11:15. The village received it without ceremony. A few lights came on in windows that had been dark. The story of the Bergkamp convoy spread through the valley the way stories spread in small places, without embellishment, because the facts were enough. A road service crew had given up. A 67-year-old farmer with a Lanz Bulldog and 50 years of road knowledge had taken 4 tanker trucks over the mountain in the dark at -15. The limestone under the left side of the curves, the 30 centimeters. Franz Obermayer filed his incident report with a notation about local terrain knowledge and its application to winter recovery. The notation was brief. What it meant was not. In the following winters, when the Bergkamp froze, Obermayer called Heinrich Mayer before driving up with the plow. He asked where the ice was forming, what the limestone was doing, which side of which curve. Heinrich told him, and it was useful, and neither man spoke about the convoy again because it did not need to be spoken about. Heinrich Mayer worked his farm until 1971. The Lanz Bulldog stayed in the barn. His son Werner used it on the mountain roads in winter the way his father had. Slowly, on the left side of the curves, trusting the limestone. When Heinrich died in 1975 at the age of 79, the farmers in the valley said he had known this land the way water knows a riverbed, completely from the inside, by having moved through it long enough to understand its shape. The Lanz D2-816 still starts on the fourth turn of the crank. Pum pum pum. Some roads can only be driven by the people who have driven them long enough to know what lies beneath them. Some machines can only do certain work because they were built for exactly that work, and the world keeps producing exactly that work no matter how many better machines arrive. What happened on the Bergkamp Pass on that January night in 1963 was not a story about an old tractor outperforming a modern one. It was a story about what happens when the right machine meets the right knowledge in the right conditions. And all three had been waiting in that valley for 50 years, patient in a barn at the bottom of a hill, for the night when they would matter. They mattered. The village stayed warm. Old iron kept its promise.